Amendment Bill, third reading.
Call on Government. Order of the day number 3.
Employment Relations Amendment Bill, interrupted debate on first reading.
Members, when the House was last debating their first reading, Honourable Simon Bridges had the call. If he wishes, he has about 1.5 minutes remaining. If not, is some other member seeking the call? Darian Fenton.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Well, this bill, Mr Speaker, the Employment Relations Amendment Bill, is the poster child for the failure of this national government, the failure to deliver on John Key's promise of more jobs, the failure to lift wages for hard-working Kiwis, the failure to close the wage gap with Australia. And now with this bill, Nationals declared war on wages. They want to cut the pay of hard-working Kiwis. They've reverted to their modus operandi of last century, dressed up in the soft soap language that we heard from the Minister of Labour of choice and flexibility. John Key's government is now the low-wage king of New Zealand. They've held down the minimum wage, they've cut young workers' pay, and now they're gutting the primary wage-fixing mechanism under New Zealand law. It's already hard going, Mr Speaker, and it's costing New Zealand workers and their families. But this bill is going to have a knock-on effect throughout the labour market and further entrench Kiwis in a low-wage economy. By taking away Kiwis' right to fair wage negotiations and standard setting, workers across the board are going to see their wages fall. Every change from this government, from allowing employers to walk away from collective bargaining or negotiations, to stopping people finding out why they've been sacked, to taking away the right to a tea break, is about National looking after their mates at the expense of everyone else. This is payback for their wealthy mates who've become restless. And didn't we see it last week in the media? They think the government's been too soft on workers and unions. They hate unions. Their mates don't like the fact that we still have the remnants of a bargaining system in New Zealand where workers can actually have a say. They've donated big time to the National Party, expecting a whole lot more. And what did we see last year? The former Minister, Kate Wilkinson, all due respect to her, there was pressure on her, and now it's on Simon Bridges, that very ambitious minister, to deliver to their donors. They want to see workers put in their place, and that's what this bill is about. This bill undermines the foundation of the Employment Relations Act, which is meant to promote collective bargaining, not destroy it, and it's meant to promote compliance with important international conventions. It destroys the foundation of good faith and fair dealing in our law, which governments, business and unions have worked on so carefully for the last 10 years. It puts industrial relations firmly back on the agenda as a political issue, and we say, bring it on. Bring it on. Because Kiwi workers are sick and tired of being told by this government that they should be grateful to have a job, no matter what the pay is or the conditions are. They should be grateful, and that's what this bill's about as well. Mr Speaker, once the backbone of New Zealand jobs was about a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. It was about a chance to build a better life for ourselves and our families. But now, while John Key gives handouts and favours to his mates, Kiwi workers are seeing the dream of decent work slip further away. This bill is not good for workers, but it's not good for employers either. Good employers under this bill will have to compete with bad employers who will have free rein under these changes to employment law. Actually, I've had many employers express privately to me their puzzlement about these changes. They don't seem that fussed about them, and many tell me they never asked for them. So what employers are saying to me is that they need stability, and this bill is going to upset the labour market in a way we have not seen in years and years. The truth is the only people that are going to do well out of this bill are employment laws, and I hope the Minister has provided more resources for the Employment Relations Authority in the court, because that's where this is going to end up. The government seems increasingly out of touch with good employers who are trying to do the right thing. They're missing out on the conversation that's taking place all around us, around the living wage, where we've got employers lining up to sign up to be living wage employers. The government is deaf to that. They don't seem to understand that things are changing in New Zealand. People don't want this bill. They don't want us to go back to the system that we had 20 years ago under this government. But, Mr. Speaker, let's be in no doubt, under this bill, standards set by collective agreements that extend across the labour market to wage and salary earners will stall. New workers being employed doing the same work can be paid less, and the government's own advisers said that. It's in the Cabinet papers. Collective agreements are going to be harder to settle, and I think that's the aim of the bill. And then there's the extraordinary proposals to tax workers 10% of their pay and allow their pay to fall below minimum wage for partial actions. No measurement about what that action can be. The Minister said yesterday, oh, well, it's about a level playing field. Employers can already suspend and lock out workers that take partial action. There's no balance in this in terms of workers being able to do similar things to that. Actually, I can't find a jurisdiction anywhere in the world that does this. And a consequence of this silly policy, goodness knows where it came from, probably from the floor of a National Party conference, probably from the floor, and we know what the sort of things they come up with. But what it's meant is this bill has pages and pages and pages dedicated to being able to tax workers, fine workers, for taking little action, which could be just working to roll, doing their full hours, but saying to an employer, we're a bit upset with you about the collective bargaining, you're not giving us a pay increase, so we're going to just do our jobs and no more. They can be fined. And if we're talking about meanness, Mr. Speaker, the cuts to meals and rest breaks in this bill, which I thought we'd seen the back of in 2010 when it disappeared, when it went to the bottom of the order paper, have been revised. And what it means is the boss will decide if workers get a break. And what's even worse is workers will be required to work during unpaid meal breaks. Now, I don't know what the name is for that. I think years ago they used to call it slavery, where people were required flexibility these days, that's the thing, it's slavery or flexibility. But what it means is workers are going to be required to work for nothing during their breaks. I was interested in the Minister's comments about Part 6A. Clearly he's had the message that the proposal to cut the protections for vulnerable workers is not supported by many businesses. We all know where this proposal came from. Despite a comprehensive review that took the Minister 3 years, including not only the Department of Labour but employing a separate consultant, there were specific recommendations that small and medium-sized businesses should not be exempted. Then Minister Kate Wilkinson, former Minister, got the crest clean message. Get rid of Part 6A or we will campaign against you. And they did. They did. And the National Party connections in Crest Clean, a company that's had more cases against them around Part 6A, got rid of her. Next minute, despite all the advice, a 3-year review, the Cabinet decided to exempt small business. Now, this bill comes from a government that simply doesn't get it. They've never understood the vulnerabilities of a worker standing up to an employer when the employer holds all the cards, when their economic livelihood is on the line, when their only choice is to keep quiet, to shut up, be obedient or lose their jobs. This is a minister running this who's never had to face an employer who has more bargaining power than him. And this is a minister who made it plain yesterday he doesn't understand the consequences of this bill. I do look forward to the conversation he's committed to at the International Labour Organisation next week, and I'm looking forward to a report back on that. But there is a better way than this, Mr. Speaker. This constant grinding down of Kiwi workers is not acceptable. We need a party with the backbone to make decent work a reality again, and that party is Labour.
David Bennett.
I thought that was a serious speech until that last moment. We